So let's make down players angry today by making a way too early Mortal Kombat 1 tier list. Now I want to preface this by saying a couple of things. One, a lot of people are playing MK1 like it's MK11, meaning they try to poke, they don't take their turn after because a blocked poke is like -10 in this game. Like no one has a good advancing mid except one character, which is heavily being downplayed right now. So you really have to play that with punish, that more neutral game, right? And the other thing I wanted to talk about is that I will base my S tier really on which characters the pros are using in top 8. Because what do pros want to do when they're in top 8? They want to win. So who are they going to pick in top 8? They're going to pick the best characters, right? So we will call this tier actually smooth sailing. I know there's 2 L's or not, who cares? Now the A tier, I'm going to call it darn good. Now this tier is going to be characters that have very good tools, are very good, you know, without cameos. They don't depend on cameos, but they have a few weaknesses. Weaknesses that can be definitely overcome with cameos, right? Characters in B tier are just middle of the road. They're usable, but you really need to be using cameos with them because they don't have a lot of gimmicks on block. They may be really unsafe, they may be really slow, they may have to play that more patient and neutral game way more than other characters, but they can still dish out really decent damage. So those are the characters I will put in the mid tier. And finally the C tier, it's the help me tier. And we're going to remove the D tier because we don't need it. And there's only one character that's going here and y'all already know who it is. So, you know. So yeah, this is how it's going to go. Let's start with the S tiers, the characters that people are using right now. Baraka, we all know Baraka Cyrax. We hate playing against him. We got Johnny Cage and Cyrax. Everyone hates playing against him. We got Kenshi's, right? Is very oppressive, it hurts my brain. And he's also really good with Frost. We got our Raidens. And I kind of want to order this a bit. I think Johnny on his own is like, he has very good frames. So he doesn't, you know, need a cameo, but he becomes extremely oppressive with a cameo. Same for Kenshi. And same for Raiden. I don't know if I would put Raiden as the top one. Oops. Come on. Because I think he gets like the most damage out of them. And his lightning suck move that does so much freaking chip damage paired that with Cyrax. It's annoying. I think Raiden is top 1. Johnny, Kenshi, Baraka. And controversially enough, Ashura is the last very top tier character. I've seen some pros play her and she is so stupid. You can do her forward 2 into projectile over and over again. You can safely do her down forward 2 special on block because it throws her up in the air, right? It's very hard to punish. And if they meter burn it, even if you jump up to go and punish it, they can just hit you out of it and get a combo. Like she's really stupid. But the thing is, a lot of people are not using her because of her stance, right? She may be a bit harder to play, so you won't see her online a lot. There's like a few other characters that are harder to play, kind of like Geras, Tanya, I believe are extremely good but aren't being played a lot. Those are my top tiers. Let me know what you think about this row. So Geras, as I was talking about, I think he's really freaking good. Like, sure, he doesn't have a good mid. I think it's just like the chest bump he does, which has no range. It's pretty dumb. But he has a lot of good tools to control the screen, to make you guess. He has a really like hard gimmick to stack, you know, with the Thanos snapping stuff. But I think the more people get used to him and get really good with him, we're going to see him a lot more, maybe in top 16s and maybe even in top 8s. Next, Havik is another darn good contender because he literally has everything. He has up close pressure, he has good projectiles, he has some mix, right? All safe, of course, but he also has like a armored move that has 3 hits of armor, which is really good. I think the only downside to him is that he's pretty slow, right? And you have to set up a lot of his stuff, like his neck breaking stuff. You know, you have to use 2 bars of meter for that. And without Sub-Zero, it's hard to combo into a lot of his stuff, which are his weaknesses. But I think overall, if you play him as a whiff punisher, he has some really good range. So I think he's a darn good. Now, Kitana is that character I was talking about that has one of the best advancing mids in the game. So she is a whiff punish princess, not an empress, because that's Mileena's job. And I know a lot of people are downplaying this lady and want to put her in mid, right? She goes in darn good. And why is that? Yes, she has some stubbiness on some of her strings, but because of her mid, I think the fact that she's such a good whiff punisher and you can bait like so much with her. Now maybe I am upplaying her, and I do think that she can only get a bunch of damage with a cameo. You know, I don't think she has some crazy block pressure stuff, but again, you're supposed to play her as a stagger with punish character. You need to bait, stagger. And if they're full screen, she has some really good projectiles to keep people out, right? So she has that full screen presence with the traps, which if you use Cyrax, you can Cyrax net and then set up the trap and all that good stuff, you know. Maybe there's some weaknesses that I'm overlooking that might make her mid-tier, but as of right now, I'm just not seeing it that much. So Kung Lao. Now we're going to put in darn good. He has some good frames, some great staggers, but there is one thing, you know, when people meter burn his Shaolin kick or whatever, which is basically Mileena's up teleport, and then they go up and they do the hat swing, his jump 2, I think it is. Like, people are continuously blocking and not punishing him for doing that, but you can just down 2 him out of it, right? So that pressure is so freaking fake. But again, just like in MK11, he has a good strike throw game. But I think on his own, he's good, but a cameo is even better. He has good damage, so to me, that makes him darn good. Now, Li Mei, this is a controversial one. A lot of people are saying she's really good. A lot of people are saying that she... But again, you're going to see a pattern here, but a lot of these characters that are being downplayed is because obviously the game is still early, right? People are not figuring out how to play this game 100%. But I think the stagger she has, the fact that she has a low that is safe on block, and she has a pop-up even though it's death on block, even though it's slow, she sort of has a mix-up to that, right? Because she has an overhead that knocks down to that string, which is safe. I think it's like at 5 or 6, so like she technically loses her turn, but it's still safe. Lantern combos aren't hard to do. Maybe they're harder to set up against good characters because, you know, the startup of Lantern is pretty slow. But I think she has some really good neutral tools. She has such an amazing projectile. Like, it is so freaking fast. The big knee into the multiple hits is so freaking good. It's like a really good neutral tool. And it's also armored wake up, so it's awesome. I'm gonna be controversial and put her in darn good. Because even though she has trouble opening people up, which is one of her weaknesses, if you pair her with a cameo that has some mix like Kung Lao, Frost, right? You know, she becomes pretty good. Liu Kang, I don't think is too controversial if we put him in a darn good tier. He's a good zoner. He has some really good projectiles, really good space control tools. He has a good mid, you know, although it's not advancing, it's still pretty good. He has some staggers up front. Again, a good strike throw. He has some decent damage, I think. I guess the only thing he's really like missing is mix. And I don't think he has some really good range. Correct me if I'm wrong, but only his kick strings have range. But you know, they're highs and they're pretty slow. Now next up, Mileena, which is my main. She goes in darn good. I know people are trying to downplay her and saying, oh, because 1-2's fall is blockable, she's so bad. She is not bad. 1-2 is the best punish tool she has because at 7 frames startup, that is what you want to use in your opponent's face when they do something stupid on block. And not only that, even the standing one is a stagger, good stagger. And it still has range, right? You can do some shimmies into it, like, it's really good. Also forget that a forward 2-4-2 on block is +2 and has pushback. And all the people say on her own she doesn't have mix, like her forward 4 does 11% damage, it breaks armor, so if you do that a lot on knockdown, they're going to start stand blocking, and then when you do forward 2-4, that's a full combo because they're not going to block that low. She's one of these characters you need to play in with punish range. You need to bait a lot of their down ones because again, down ones, it is gamer totally with punishable. And crazy enough, her back 4, her sweep, is safe, right? Which is weird in games like these. A lot of people are not using her back 4, but it's pretty freaking good. Now her weaknesses is, of course, you know, she is a bit stubby. She doesn't have good full screen projectiles. But other than that, she has good damage, and her weaknesses can be filled out with cameos. Kung Lao, Cyrax, which is really stupid. The more people try to bait 1-2 on block and just stagger the 1 and punish people's up block, you know, the more people are going to realize that there's a mind game there and that she's really freaking good. Megara or Nitara is going to go in mid because even though she gets some really good damage, I don't think she has anything else going for her. Now, if you use her with someone like Kung Lao, you could get some decent mix, but because she uses her claws in a lot of her attacks, she's extremely stubby, right? More so than Mileena. Her range is really lacking. The only projectile she gets, you need to forfeit your health to get it, so that's kind of poopy. I think as mid tiers go, she's like mid of the mid, right? Middest of them all. Now Rain, I was inclined to put him in darn good. However, I've kind of realized that I'm pretty sure his unblockable setup, you know, the one where when you're knocked down, they put the toilet flushing special on the ground and then they hit you with that overhead. I think you can jump that, if I'm not mistaken. I tried to armor through it with Mileena, but it wasn't working because her startup is really slow. However, if pros aren't using that unblockable setup a lot, it means there's probably an easy counter to it. I don't think he excels as a zoner, but I think as a whiff punisher, even though he's slow, he's really good if he baits, pokes, and all of that. Because with cameos, he does get some decent damage, right? And he has an overhead that pops up, so I wouldn't say he's the worst of the worst, and I wouldn't put him in the help me tier. Next is Reiko. This man is quick. He has some amazing projectiles. Although I never really had a big problem playing against him because Mileena really doesn't care about zoners. But he's fast, he's got the range, he will punish you from full screen with his slide, so it's a really, really tough character to play against. And if you pair him with Darius, he gets so much freaking damage, it's kind of incredible. He's a solid character. I mean, he's a grappler with like the best projectile in the game, so of course he's not missing much to be S tier. Reptile is one of those that has good range, he has some mix, however it's slow, and the follow-up, like, it doesn't have a lot of good gimmicks on block, right? Because all of his stuff that he wants to do is extremely negative. He has some good space control tools with his force balls, of course, and his slide and all of that stuff, but at the end of the day, they are just gimmicks, right? Because they are really, really punishable on block. But again, he's one of those characters you really, really have to play neutral heavy with. I think with Kung Lao, he could possibly end up being darn good because he does get decent damage, but he didn't nerf his damage, so because of the damage nerf, because of how slow he is and unsafe he is, I think I would put him in the mid-tier. Tier dudes, but I think he's at the top of there. You know, because he has good range, he has good damage. However, again, the problem is he doesn't have gimmicks on block. I don't think he has really good staggers, and he's negative on a lot of the stuff. He really needs a good cameo, kind of like Sector, that gives him that block pressure, or he really struggles up close. Shang is freaking good. Like, for his zoner, he has some really good movement, he has some really good tools for all over the screen. And again, he's one of those characters where he's harder to play because of him switching to old and young Shang, and of course because he can morph into other characters, right? You need a good knowledge of every character if you want to take advantage of that. Although I think he is much harder to play, he's very solid because he's not missing much, right, to become S tier. Now I think Shao is mid tier. I would put him here because he does have some safe stuff on block, like his overhead pop up without his axe. He does have some lows if you're good at hit confirming that into his knee armored wake up. However, I think he still suffers from a bit of the stubbiness syndrome. He doesn't have really good gimmicks on block. I think he's good at whiff punishing if people play him neutral heavy, right? Because he will get good damage from that, but his mix doesn't really lead to much. Now, Sindel, I think, is pretty mid as well. She has some really good projectiles if you want to zone with her. But once you get up close, like, what is she gonna do really, right? She's pretty stubby too, she doesn't have a lot of range. She doesn't have that many dirty tactics and things you can abuse, right? She has some plus frames up close, of course, but again, super stubby. And I'm pretty sure she gets like pretty low damage even from freaking long combos, so yeah, I would say she is mid. Now Smoke, oh my gosh. People hate that man in a Kombat League, and I get it, but he's not that good. He does have some damage, and the only reason I don't put him in Help Me is because he does get that damage. He doesn't have good range. His tool to get in, which is his Vicious Vapors, is freaking unsafe, and even if you cancel it, you can poke him out of it, right? So he doesn't really have the block pressure that people think he has. His main combo starter string, his 4-3-2, although it's a low overhead, right? The overhead, the 2, can be up blocked for a full combo punish, so, you know, can definitely stagger it, kind of like Mileena, as I was saying. If people play neutral, if people stagger and bait with him, then sure, they can get some big damage, but I think otherwise he just really struggles to get anything going up close, because although he is a rushdown character, he doesn't have a lot of tools to enforce that. So because of that, I think he is mid-tier. The only thing that I think is hard to deal with is if he goes invisible, right? because you won't see his mix coming. Now Sub-Zero, we all know he's going to help me. They nerfed this man so bad, nerfed his clone, nerfed his damage. I think they even nerfed his overhead, making it slower if I'm not crazy. Like, sure, he can get some stuff going and he can do some damage with cameos, because he does have some good range with punish range, right? However, in a game where everyone is doing like 40 to 50% combos, if you're only dishing out 30% combos and you're spending a lot of resources to do that, then why would you even play this character, right? When a lot of other characters will dish out more damage for the same resources. Like, there's just no reason to play him unless you're a Sub-Zero main and you love him. Now Tanya, the most downplayed character of them all, because again, she is harder to play. You know, she has a lot of depth to her, especially with her parry, but she has so much good range. It's a really good block pressure, and it's one of the characters you cannot jump on because I think it's her back two, right? Leads to a full combo. Like, even though she doesn't do the most damage out of everyone, I think that's pretty much her only weakness. She might be on the slow side as well, but she has so many tools to control neutral that getting in on her is hard, and when she is in on you, she will do the most confusing thing you've ever seen in your life. Like, she has some really good block pressure. Tanya is definitely underrated, and she's a really good character. So that is my early tier list for Mortal Kombat 1. I can't wait to see how the meta will change with new characters, with new cameos, because cameos, as we've seen with Cyrax, can change the meta so freaking much. And I'm really excited to see what we're going to get next. So anyways, let me know what you think about this tier list. Who would you change? You know, also keep in mind that this is my opinion from maining Mileena, right? I've played Mileena against all these characters, so that is my experience. So let me know your thoughts down below. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's at vslayermk. And as always, have yourself a wonderful day, and I'll see you all very soon.